This religion has been rated R for scenes of brief nudity and spanking.
I'll save you some time. They're all wrong.
Unless the artwork for this episode is your beard, I think you're okay.
As I say, I'm a bit busy being naked somewhere.
Well, what's stopping you from going around raping and killing everyone? And my response to that was, I'm not a dick.
So you get your morals from a being who isn't constrained by these morals. Okay, got it. Hello and welcome to the Church of Awesome.
The church to end all churches.
I will be conducting this meeting today. I am the Demi-Pope Chris. Presiding in this meeting will be Cardinal Imam Spencer, son of Hagar.
Peace be upon him.
Also joining us will be the Archangel Michael.
Yeah.
Bill cannot be here today as he has explosive diarrhea. Unbeknownst to us, he was a member of the MPAA. And also he liked the Black Eyed Peas. So we had to enforce our fatwa upon him. So instead, joining us is Mahatma Ben.
Hello.
Hello there, Mahatma, if that is your real name.
It is not.
So the theme of today's episode is paganism. And since you are the only one who actually knows what that is, we're going to ask you, hey Mahatma, Mr. Mahatma Ben, what is paganism? And how has it affected you?
Paganism are small furry rodents with a nasty disposition. Paganism, if you go on Wikipedia, it's referred to as neo-paganism. It's kind of a modern interpretation of a lot of old druidic practices and beliefs. The flavor of paganism that I was brought up with involved, it was basically sort of giving thanks to nature and the universe, and that everything is imbued with a male and a female force. That goes double for hermaphrodites, obviously. So, there is a god and a goddess, and possibly some other things, and possibly maybe some ghosts.
Kind of yin-yang kind of stuff.
I don't remember as much of it, because I realized at like really young age that I was an atheist. Like 8 years old is when I figured that shit out. So I kind of started to ignore a lot of the stuff my parents were doing, such as, and this is just an example, standing in our back garden naked, chanting and jumping over broomsticks.
Did you make that up?
50% of that is made up. They didn't always jump over the broomsticks.
Which 50%?
They didn't always jump. The broomstick jumping was for, there's a sort of a pagan wedding ritual called a hand fastening.
Wait, hang on. You were naked in the backyard?
There was nudity. There has been nudity.
So that wasn't made up?
That was not made up.
Okay. Go on. I can't get past the nudity. Sorry. Go on.
I've seen my parents naked more often than is healthy for a human being. I wish it was just the once. I really do. It was really weird growing up as a kid. We had robes and cords, and the house that I grew up in was originally my grandmother's house. And when she died, when I was about 2 or 3, my mother inherited the house. And it was this really nice, sort of really long garden with just plain grass. And my dad decided, because a lot of the pagan rituals revolve around circles, which is kind of science. So because a lot of a circle is basically a gathering of people, usually in a circle, and because I like to do it outside, my dad thought, wouldn't it be fun if we took this really nice stretch of land and cut some holes in it? We'd make some flower beds so that there is actually the form of a circle. There's actually the form of a circle in the garden. So that's where the circles took place, kind of underneath the tree as well. And a part of this, I'm sure I'll get to a point eventually. I'm just it's very stream of consciousness because I'm having to recall it on the fly.
Is there unrepressing memories?
Yeah. Oh my God. The stick, the donkey, no. Where was I going with this? Yeah, so I just remember we celebrated the solstices and the equinoxes. Springs. I'm not sure.
Equines?
I'm not sure what the plural is. Spring equinox, summer solstice, autumn equinox, winter solstice. Yes, that makes sense. So we would do my parents and their pagan friends, their coven, I guess you may want to call it, because there's a lot of witchcraft.
Is that what they would call themselves?
Yes. And certainly what my dad lives in LA now as well. And his current group he refers to as a coven, which he is the high priest of.
Okay, so it's not just witches, it's just any group of So any group of druids or pagans is called a coven, or that's just what you've heard?
At least that's the flavor of paganism I grew up with. Now, paganism kind of differs depending on where you celebrate it, or where it's practiced. Rather, in California, there's more of a difference between paganism and Wicca, which is kind of a flavor of paganism. Over in the UK, at least growing up as a kid, there wasn't much of a difference. Wicca was considered part of paganism. You were a pagan and a Wiccan. At least that's how I recall it. Growing up as a kid.
Was this like being a Christian and a
Like
Protestant?
I guess so. I'm not really sure. Again, it just seems like another flavor of neo-paganism.
You weren't brought up in the Abrahamic religion, so like I'm trying to find common ground. Like the word pagan itself is like, does that mean like Gentile? Where a Gentile is anyone who's not of a Semitic tribe, and pagan is anyone who's not Christian, or help me out here.
Well, that's what it became used as later, because that was the main competition for Christianity in that area. But I assume that it was a specific religion at some time.
A lot of what I remember is belching.
Belching naked in the yard with your parents.
See, that's what happens when you unrepressed memories.
So here's
what it sounds like.
Yeah.
So here's what I remember mostly about when I was if you want to call it a practicing pagan when I was a kid. I remember having my own robes. I remember having my own. It's sort of a pagan name. My mum's chosen pagan name was Willow. Which she did not get from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, as it predates that by about,
But it's just something nature related that they always struck.
My dad's name has kind of
got it from a Val Kilmer movie.
Changed.
Yeah.
At least I don't remember what my dad's name was, and I think I know what it is now, but I can't remember, and I don't want to say and make an ass of myself. I remember as a kid, a lot of it didn't make sense, so I kind of stopped paying attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
Now it wasn't like every single Sunday you went into a little crowded building and sit in pews. It was just like every quarter year you sort of stand there naked and chant.
Not always with the nudity, but more or less, yeah. There was.
I have a hard time not thinking about the nudity.
Please don't picture my mother naked.
And speaking of repressed memories,
well, as well as having the circle in the garden, the front room of the house, not to be confused with the living room or lounge, which was the back room of the house, but the front room of the house became a de facto temple. My parents had a lot of things up on the walls, like paintings and artifacts. Artifacts being just a word that I've chosen to describe a lot of the sort of sculpted masks and assorted crap that
it's like shit.
The thrift store bullshit that my parents sorted out. Although they had, and my mum still has, a really nice dagger that went up on the wall that was anointed. It was dipped in some kind of water, Gatorade or something. I don't really know.
Watery tart threw it out.
Yeah, it was a moistened bint.
Yeah,
lobbed it at her from a pond. So there was a lot of that. So when we couldn't have the circle outdoors, we could have it indoors, like if it's raining. And it rains a lot in England, so we spent a lot of time indoors. Other things I remember are there was an annual pagan festival called Puke, which is spelled PEWC, and it is an acronym for something, but it's Puke, isn't it? You can't get past that.
Yeah.
Once you hear that, you don't really want to know what it stands for. You just know that there's a pagan gathering and it's called Puke. And the only one I remember was from 97, so I was about 11 at this time and kind of not really interested in the religion at all. But I went because my family went. It was kind of our vacation. And I do remember a large circle of people on the grounds. I think it was like a camp or something. The organisation had hired it for a week. And I remember a large circle of very, very naked people, including people I knew.
You say very naked people?
Yeah. There are degrees.
When you see that much nudity, and that much nudity, by the way, doesn't necessarily mean the quantity of people. Well, it does mean the quantity of people, but there are also people who are of a quantity, if you see what I mean. And that kind of thing stays with you. I got through it by borrowing one of the other kids' Sega Game Gears and just playing Sonic the Hedgehog until I couldn't think thoughts no more.
Yeah, but when you get nervous, that's what they say. Just picture them all with their clothes on.
Yes. But I remember the sleeping arrangements for this thing. It was like this long hall with a bunch of beds. It was like, you know, the episode of The Simpsons where they join the movementarians, Homer signs up the family to that cult, and then there's just kind of like the barracks with all the bunk beds. It was like that, but without bunk beds. It was like single beds.
Mm-hmm.
If looking back on it, that whole week feels very culty, which is that. I mean, that's just coming back now, and that just really scares me. You know, it's such a weird religion to be a part of, you know. It is.
Well, it seems very much like the hippie movement and like all the new age kind of stuff around.
There's a lot of that in there. But my dad did and still does kind of like he taught astral projection classes, and he still does astral projection and trying to commune with the gods and that kind of thing. And he gets satisfaction out of it. He actually has a pagan podcast, the name of which I can no longer remember because I don't listen to it. And he probably won't listen to this, so I can say anything I want. And it is all about nature, and it's all about giving thanks to nature and to the masculine and feminine forces of nature, and like Hurricane Katrina. You know, did you get
gotta take the good with the bad, you know.
You get Hurricane Bob, Hurricane Jeffrey, Reginald. Do you get male hurricanes?
You got El Nino.
They switch off.
Hurricane Andrew.
Oh yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, there's. I go through the alphabet, right?
Yeah, and they alternate male and female.
Huh? I didn't know that. It had to be fair. Awful things are both male and female. Real quick, give me a brief history on what the hell the Druids are, because I don't know what that is.
Okay, Druids were basically everything I've told you about the belief in nature and the masculine and feminine forces. The Druids were doing that hundreds, potentially thousands of years before Christianity was even learning to walk. The Druids are largely believed to have built Stonehenge either as a calendar or a landing pad for a spaceship, or maybe they were just bored and they had those rocks and they just thought, wait a great big, it's a big rock Jenga. There were no survivors.
They were playing chess.
No, they were marking the location of the Pandorica. Come on.
Of course, obviously. And only two people in this room get that reference.
Yay!
But there's the Druids basically did what neo-paganism is trying to do now, only I guess they had a little bit more order and were slightly less flaky about it.
Well, it was kind of a basic shamanistic religion.
Yeah, that's more or less it. Like I say, it's no different from, you know,
like Native American religions that we hear about.
The crux of the faith is more or less the same, except in England, if you pray for rain and it happens, you can kind of pat yourself on the back because you know, oh, it's raining and we did a dance and now it's raining, and it was going to rain anyway. I mean, it's England. Yeah.
But
yeah, so the Druids were doing that, and then Christianity kind of popped and went, "Hey, how you doing?
We're gonna overtake you now.
We're gonna steal everything you like about your faith, including we're not limited to the tree." Except that kind of happened later, so I'm kind of misinterpreting the events here. But a lot of elements of paganism were kind of incorporated into Christianity, so early Christians could say, look, we've got all this stuff that you have. So it's really, if you convert to Christianity, you're not really, because
you don't even have to change your calendar.
You don't have to change your calendars. You don't have to buy new robes. You don't have to. Okay, we're going to nudge that that winter thing forward 4 days. But apart from that, you're good.
Are there any other holidays other than those changing of the seasons, the solstices and equinoxes?
The winter solstice is also referred to as Yule or Yuletide, which is where the term comes from. And that's also where the tree comes from. The notion of the Christmas tree, they were still doing that in Germany in the century. And then when I forget the name of the explorer or whoever it was who went to Germany, saw they had trees up for the Christmas period and went, oh, that's pretty good. We can
use that.
Yeah, it's great. Get well, use it. So yeah, they stole the tree, much to the chagrin of the German people, because they didn't have a tree anymore.
It was the only one they had.
Yeah, it's like they grow on. So
Well, it's just like in The Grinch Stole Christmas. There's just one large tree, and everyone gathers around in circles.
Yeah.
Except for they have clothes, apparently. In Dr. Seuss.
the Grinch is a very pagan story, and I'm just pulling that out my ass right now. I don't know. It may as well be.
But other than Yuletide, which is kind of, so you say the winter solstice continues, and Yuletide is a season, or maybe a week after, or something like that.
Well, it's the 21st. The way my family did it was they would try, because the 21st is not considered a national holiday, so people can't exactly get it off work. So the way my family and friends would do it, they would go for the weekend closest to the 21st. So people would arrive on maybe the Friday night or the Saturday morning. We'd have our meal on the Saturday night, open our presents on the Sunday, and then as a kid I remember going off and playing with whatever it was I'd been given. Normally, I got Super Nintendo one year, which was pretty cool. Which is the best part of paganism, by the way, all the Super Nintendos. And then while the kids are doing that, the adults would, they'd go and have their circle or something. I got a bike once.
Dude, that's something that I'd like to point out that I find very funny. It's where your religious beliefs or superstition kind of has to take a backseat to the social schedules and stuff. Like, this is a really holy day, and if you don't abide by this or celebrate it, you're offending God. But you can put it on a Tuesday. It's not a big deal because but wait for the weekend because God just fuck you, God. Just wait a couple days.
I think with paganism, I think there was less of an angry, vengeful God and more of a kind of a laid back, whatever, you do your thing, I'll do mine, and we'll see. I think if there were like a definitive pagan holy book, it would probably begin with, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was bollocks. the God and all goddess are like put their leg up on the table and spilt their drink, and that's the cataclysm for the creation of the universe. And then they're trying to mop it up and like, just leave it. Now leave it. Columbo's on. We'll watch that, and then we'll come back to it later, and then they just forget about it.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about basically the moment where you realized you were just not into it, not following the program.
And I want to answer that question. I think I was about 8 years old. I think I mentioned this earlier. I was about 8 years old. It occurred to me that religion may not be all it was cracked up to be when I realized I was living in a pagan household in an Islamic neighborhood in a multicultural town in a predominantly Christian country. I would go to school and I'd have friends who were Christians, Jews, Jehovah's Witnesses, Muslims, Sikh, Hindu, all these different flavors of all these different faiths, all kind of silently laughing at each other because it's like, we know we're right, we know we're right. Mm. Everyone else, we just kind of, we let them do their thing, but we know we're right. And it's like, I got to a point where I realized they can't all be right. And as a kid, the crux of the logic was they can't all be right, therefore they must all be wrong. But as I've gotten older and I've learned about the faiths and the core of each religion, I realised that there are a lot of the big three, if you like. You've got Christianity and Islam and third one. Pick one, I don't know, but they're all very samey. A lot of the major sort of mainstream religions like Oprahism and Voodoo have very samey, stories and tenets and rules, and some emphasize a little bit more of the decapitation and a little bit less of the equal rights for women, but they're all basically the same thing. And once I understood that, I realized, okay, mainstream religion in its current form probably does not have all the answers, and I would rather listen to the people who know they don't have the answers but are actively seeking them out, namely the scientists, than listen to people who claim to have all the answers and they were written in a book 2,000 years ago. Because if they had all the answers, and if all of those answers were accurate and working and viable, we wouldn't live in the fucked up world we live in right now, even with all these conflicting faiths, because they're more alike than they are different.
Yeah, I always say the moment where you start suspending critical thinking and start going with magical thinking, that is when all your problems start happening. You say, we're not going to go objectively look at the facts of things or how they are, how they're observed. Rainbows and butterflies and auras and reading tea leaves is a really accurate way of telling the future and all this shit. You go, it's all a load of crap. Yeah. I'll save you some time. They're all wrong.
Well, and even if one of the religions was right, that would still mean that the majority of people on Earth are wrong.
It's like there's a moment in there's an episode of South Park where it's kind of like induction day in hell. And there's people like going, hey, I lived a devout Catholic life, and others like, hey, I was, I live by the virtues of Muhammad and Allah, and why am I here? And then the kind of the orientation guys, I'm sorry, but the correct answer was Mormons. Mormons. Yeah. So I have major problems with the need to believe in, magical space wizard who solves all your problems, who's, he has a plan. He's looking out for us.
He's in control.
He's in control, and, everything happens for a reason. And that way of thinking, that kind of, there's someone out there for us, and when we die, we get to go to heaven. And that just seems like a load of bullshit to me. It feels like a psychological safety net that's there to kind of stop us all from going insane. I'll be honest with you. I have nights where I go to sleep and the idea of death blinking away into nothingness scares the crap out of me. But I would rather face that truth and be terrified than take comfort in fiction. I may as well believe that when I die, I get to hang out with a cast of peanuts. It's basically the same thing.
That would be hell, actually.
It would be hell. I don't like peanuts. I don't know why I said it.
I just see you pulling the football away for eternity.
For eternity.
Yeah.
Oh,
is that Tartarus?
Yeah.
Well, you want to field that one, Chris? I already know what I would say in response to that. Do you know what you?
I was gonna say that's gonna be each person individually is gonna have a reaction to that, and that's kind of part of being human. Is we're the only animals, as far as we know, that are capable of comprehending that fact, and so it's just everybody as an individual needs to kind of conquer that one on their own.
Yeah, I mean it's just the what occurred to me was. Anything we do for eternity is going to eventually be damnation. There's nothing that we're going to do from here forever that won't eventually become boring or comfortable, or we'll get used to it, or it will not be exciting anymore. We won't learn anything new. It's damnation either way. So I don't even worry about it. Even if it was correct, it still doesn't appeal to me. And the idea of not existing anymore, I way prefer that. And it's like everything has a time. I'll die. It's not that big a deal,
Everything has its time and everything ends.
Yeah, and we've talked about the statistical likelihood of us being here at all, being born at all in this country in the current, situation.
It's 1,000,000 to 1 chance of 1,000,000 to 1 chance of 1,000,000 to 1 chance.
You mind if I show your Santa Claus example, Mr. Pope? I love that. I was talking to the demi-pope as I was confessing, and he was telling me about growing up during Christmas time. They would read Luke 2, which is the story of the birth of Jesus and all that, and then we'd talk about Santa Claus. And he never differentiated the two. They were both the exact same level of fictional character. And that makes me laugh, and that's so perfect because I absolutely was not. I had a clear division. I knew, these are cute stories, but Jonah was in that whale. That boat did hold that many species. It happened just as it said, because it can't be wrong. But before too long, I found out that one fat man can't deliver prisons to everyone in one night every year. But
it's problematic, and I think the problems really arise when people take these beliefs, whether you want to call them harmless or harmful or whatever, and then use them in really kind of fucked up ways. Like there are people who live in this world, in this country, in this state, in fact, who are actively looking forward to the end of the world because they're fairly confident, we'll just go to heaven and everything will be happy and awesome. There are people who, the key difference is if God tells you to go out and help someone, if someone says, God said I have to do this thing, generally we're like, oh, that's nice, he's found a religious purpose. If I told you my hairdryer told me to go out and help an old lady across the street, you probably would look at me with a degree of confusion and disgust.
Well, he has faith in that hairdryer, and faith is a good thing.
Yeah, don't you dare make fun of my belief in a benevolent hairdryer. It's just the way that people kind of, the belief as it is as a psychological safety net is fairly screwed up as it is, but taking that already screwed up premise and using it as an excuse,
as a launching pad to do all
as a
sorts
launching pad to justify some truly horrible things.
Now, is there anything like that in? Are there extremist druids?
They strap leeks to themselves and run into public buildings.
Yeah.
I don't know. There are some weird pagans, and most of the weirdos I've encountered have been in California.
Of course.
Paganism seems to have this whole other sense of self in California, particularly. There's got the running joke among my dad and my stepmom, who's also a pagan, and their circle, is that pagans in Southern California, or pagans in America specifically, are generally quite flaky. So if you make a plan to, I don't know, go see a movie or get stripped naked and dance in a circle,
As I say, I'm a bit busy being naked somewhere.
someone's not going to show up. And it's not because they object to seeing this particular movie or not wearing clothes. It's because, their brain operates on a different time stream to everyone else. And they think 6 o'clock, we're meeting at 6 o'clock. It's more of a guideline than a rule.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised at how many pagans for whom this is true. I've seen it. When I first came to the country, I lived with my dad for a couple of years, and he would have his coven on Monday or Tuesday nights, and there'd always be someone who's like, "Hey, I'm on my way," and then they never show up. I don't think there's anything particularly. I think that there are some shady characters in paganism, people who are manipulating. But you get this in any faith, but the people who are manipulating the beliefs of other pagans in order to make a quick buck or to, bolster themselves within the community. But again, you get that with any faith.
Yeah.
You get that with Christianity. You get people with their mega churches and their TV evangelists, and in politics as well. I mean, Michelle Bachmann is a key example of someone who takes her faith very seriously and who believes it must be intertwined with politics, despite the fact that she has all the wit, charm, and charisma of a pubic louse. Oh my God, I can't believe she's running for president. Part of me is glad to see her running, because it basically means Obama's going to win by default, because the choices are being A, black man, or being B,
lunatic.
crazy woman. But the other side of that coin is, well, what if she wins?
Yeah.
And she hates everything that isn't her. She's like if Glenn Beck and Sarah Palin fused together into one terrifying being.
I think she's even crazier than Glenn Beck. And Beck's got plenty of gems, but she's the one I call batshit Bachman. She's just fucking crazy.
And she's running for president.
Yeah. I'm in a way thrilled that she's running, because one, campaign season will be a lot more entertaining, and two, it guarantees my side will win. Can you imagine the debates that's going to happen with her involved?
I will. Getting back to the people using religion to justify terrible things. The recent vote in New York on same-sex marriage. There was one dude in that hall whose name I forget, and I'm sure you can look it up afterwards and that is a footnote or something. Show notes. Yeah, it's this guy Ben's talking about, who is a Catholic and is opposed to the idea of men marrying men or women marrying women, but could not, in good conscience, vote no on same-sex marriage because he couldn't see any legal reason to stop people from doing that. And importantly, he didn't think his belief that gay marriage is wrong should impinge on the rights of others. And I completely agree with that. And that's an example of someone who isn't letting their beliefs get in the way of their politics. It's the dumbest thing in this country when people allow their religion to influence their, not just their decision making, because it's crazy. Again, if your hairdryer tells you to go out and kill, you have a problem. If God tells you to go out and kill,
you have a religion.
Yeah, it bugs me. I realize I've kind of trailed off there, but I oh my God, I have huge problems with religion as a whole, and I'm trying not to rage.
That's exactly why you're here, is to rage.
Yeah.
If there's any place to rage, it's in this holy tabernacle of hate.
Your rage is safe here.
I have
Let it rip.
All right, this is therapy for me. I have problems. I have problems with people building great big buildings and then having them, occupied for a few short hours on a Sunday, and then having them use up electricity and resources, 6 days of the week when they're not being used. I take issue with people using their faith to justify evil deeds. I take issue with people using their faith to justify, putting other people down or putting me down because I have no faith. I told a coworker. When I was working at an unnamed large entertainment company, I told one of my coworkers I'm an atheist, and she, being very, very Catholic, asked me, "Well, what's stopping you from going around raping and killing everyone?" And my response to that was, "I'm not a dick." It's like I don't have, just because I don't get my morals from this 2,000-year-old book that says it's okay to stone someone for wearing two different types of cloth. Doesn't mean that I'm an amoral individual, and this is a thing that really bugs me, is when people say, "Oh, well, God's morality is unlike," you can't hold God to the same standards, the same moral standards you hold men to. If that is the case, then people are worshipping an amoral being, and that is an incredibly dangerous thing to do. It is. It's fucked up.
Yeah, it's ding. Special pleading.
Exactly.
What that is. And
I was just like, it's like, so you get your morals from a being who isn't constrained by these morals. Okay, got it.
Yeah, it's like, so you're getting your morals from the Joker, then, basically.
And personally, I'm more scared of someone who gets their morality and their code of ethics from a book that says it's okay to stone someone to death if they get a haircut or trim their beard. You guys have some mighty fine facial hair.
Oh, thank you.
It has to be said. But I'm guessing you guys have facial hair because you like the way you look, or you're lazy.
For me, well, first of all, yes.
A little bit of both.
I am lazy. And the reason it's so unkempt at the moment is, yes, I'm too lazy to trim it. It makes an awful mess.
You don't need to say the reason it's so unkempt, like they can see you. They can't see you.
As you can see.
Unless
perfectly manicured.
Unless the artwork for this episode is your beard, I think you're okay.
Which it should be.
But for the record, I specifically first grew out facial hair because my former religion encouraged young men to be clean shaven. And so it was the most outward way I could say, fuck you.
I think in many ways you guys have an advantage over I had, because I moved away from religion at a relatively young age. I was 8 years old, when I first made these connections. I didn't know what it was called at the time, and I didn't really...
Bullshit? I know what it was called.
I'm talking about atheism. I didn't know what atheism was called. Yeah, atheism's bullshit. Thanks. You just gave a load of ammunition with that one.
Yeah.
I didn't give it a name. I just said, okay, well, religion is probably bollocks. I didn't say that out loud because I was 8 and I would have been spanked. But I came to this at a very young age. You guys, on the other hand, have lived largely religious lives.
Yes.
And this change, from what I understand, is something that's happened to you relatively recently.
For me, yes.
For Mike, at least, yeah.
I stopped believing when I was 12. But I was stuck in a situation where I was drugged to church and kind of forced to live by a lot of the rules, even though I didn't believe them for, almost 10 years after that. But
that is absolutely fucked up.
It was terrible.
Yeah, and that's another thing, getting back to, people using religion to justify, foul deeds. It's people who disown family members because they're not part of the same church, or they're not part of the same faith, or they have no religion. That pisses me off. Mm-hmm. The fact that there was a Muslim woman whose name I forget. She had a fantastic blog where she'd basically she realized that religion was a load of shit, and she'd become an atheist, and she decided she was going to post on the internet, on a blog, and pick apart the Quran. And she vanished a year ago. Mm-hmm. She just vanished. I don't know it scares me. It really does. Because I don't know what's happened to her. She hasn't posted on her blog to say, this is what's happening. I've had to step away because, my head exploded. I have head exploditis. She's just gone, and that scares me. It scares me that there are people in this world who, when you say to them, I am an atheist, they think you are a vile individual and you must be shunned and treated as such. Even worse when it's family, like the Westboro Baptist Church, when people turn away, people say, I'm turning away from this church, and their family are like, fine, you're no longer part of this family. Or Jehovah's Witnesses, not all Jehovah's Witnesses, obviously, because I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush, but a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses from the town I came from would expel family members for deciding that they didn't, hold that faith anymore, regardless of whether they'd shifted to another faith or, become atheistic. They pushed them out of the family because, as far as I recall, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, in order for a Jehovah's Witness to get into heaven, the entire family has to be Jehovah's Witnesses. And if I'm wrong, feel free to correct me on that. But that's as I recall it having.
Yeah.
None of us are really experts in the.
Yeah, I've not heard that, but that's definitely a Mormon thing.
Yeah.
The whole family has to be.
So your family's fucked then, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I look at the world that we're in at the moment, and I think how much shit is going on right now because of religion. I mean, not just historically. I mean, we look at things like, you know, the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition, but shit that's going on now in places like, you know, the Palestine and so on. You know, shit that's going on. I mean, even in China, where the government is the religion. You know, it's fucked up. We live in a fucked up world, and religion. People are using that to take solace in the fact that we live in a bad world, but it's okay because, you know, everything happens for a reason. You know, there's purpose behind everything. You know, when people... No, okay.
He's gonna go again. I can't wait.
I think we need to reset it.
Okay, situation. Car crash. 17 people dead. One 9-year-old girl survives, and people say, "Oh, thank God!
What a miracle!
What a miracle that she survived!" Yeah, fucking miracle that 17 people died. Yeah. How fucked up is that? What kind of? I'm sorry, I'm probably I'm probably going way into the red here on the.
You have not clipped yet.
You know what the fuck is up with that? When people say, "Oh, it's a miracle this girl survived."
Well,
it's not a miracle. It's a fucking coincidence. She's lucky. That's luck. Any one of those.
1 out of
people
18.
could have not-
Don't be ridiculous. She still has a divine purpose here. That's why.
Well, and the everything happens for a reason thing. It's just let's just encourage people to just accept whatever happens to them.
And here's the other thing: when people say, "Oh, I prayed for my cold to go away," and my cold went away. Yeah, it's a cold. It's not terminal. You know. Or isn't God good? I found a Gucci handbag on sale. There are children dying in the third world because they can't get clean water, but you got a fucking handbag. Go you! You must feel really fucking proud of yourself.
Yeah.
I wish people. You know, I have this stupid idea in my head. This really stupid cockamamie idea in my head that people generally, when you get down to it, if you talk to them and sit and rationalize with them, they'll go, actually, yeah, you kind of make a lot of sense. I don't see why I believe in a magical space wizard. It would just make more sense for me to just live. You get one, as far as I'm concerned, you get one spin of the wheel. You know, you get one go at life, and if you live that life to the fullest, and that's why I'm in a room with 3 men recording a podcast right now. You know, live your
in a circle, naked,
you know,
jumping over each other's sticks.
Maybe paganism has it right there. Who knows? But yeah, live life to the fullest. And as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I don't know what happens when you die. I'm fairly confident that when I die, you know, the energy that forms my consciousness, however that works, because we don't know how it works, it's probably just going to go thup, and then I'm going to cease to exist, you know? There'll be a light thupping noise, there'll probably be some gentle music to transition me into the, you know, oblivion of nothingness, and then that'll be it. I'm lying about the music, because even that, unless Mike's there. And, you know, but the...
Yeah, I sing Billy Idol songs as you're dying.
I would pay for that.
I'm sorry, I meant Billy Joel, not Billy Idol.
Hey, little sister, what have you done?
No, it's Uptown Girl. Come on.
That was a Billy Idol song I was singing.
So I had a question for you. Holy books and personal prayer. Did you read any kind of Bible or say personal prayers, like, you know, before you go to bed or when you wake up in the morning? Do you pray to any particular deity?
I have very vivid memories of a child wishing upon a star to get a He-Man sword, because it was 1989 and the New Adventures of He-Man had just started, and it wasn't very good. It wasn't as good as the original. And they put out a bunch of toys, and one of them was like this sword. I was like, yes, I want that sword. And I wished upon that star every night for, I think, a year, and I never got that sword. And that's the moment I became, you know.
Well, is that something that's explicitly pagan, or did you just happen to have just watched Pinocchio?
Can you? There's no pagans out there in the world who don't want a He-Man sword. No, I don't know. I don't think there are any kind of. I don't think there are any sort of night rituals or prayers. I don't remember a holy book. I remember that there is something called the Book of Shadows, but it's kind of very personal. It's written by the person who keeps it, and I think it's kind of a personal collection of, you know, rights and insights and things. So there isn't really a unifying holy book for neo-paganism. Which I think is probably one of the better things about that religion. It's one of the least worst religions out there because it's not telling you to adhere to the tenets of this particular. But one of the things I do remember about paganism is you had to be taught paganism. You weren't pagan. This is something I remember from when my sister decided she wanted to pursue the faith properly. Is you couldn't just say, "Oh, I'm pagan." You had to go through a learning process and learning all about this and that and the god and the goddess and nature and the balance and the rights and the beliefs and
Kind of like Scientology.
yeah, kind of like
You
Scientology.
accepted into it.
Yeah,
basically.
You had to earn your paganisity.
and then at the end, there was an initiation ceremony, which, as far as I'm aware, does not involve any paddles or nudity. Although I believe the nudity is optional. No, there is nudity, as I recall. There is nudity. So
Is there any nudity?
this religion has been rated R for scenes of brief nudity and spanking.
Well, you're saying there are pagan rituals of like inductance, and there's also like weddings, and are there any other like when the child is born and stuff like that?
I believe there is some kind of naming ceremony. I can't remember what it's called, what it entails, or whether there's any nudity.
Well, the baby might be nude. Yeah.
I do remember.
Don't be
that-
ridiculous. It's everyone around the circle that's nude.
Yes.
The baby's wearing clothes, pervert.
Yeah, it's wearing a gorilla suit.
Yeah, that goes down well. I remember actually, my parents have been in.
pedophile.
My parents were in a British tabloid paper called The Sun, but not like The Sun over here, the crazy sort of fundy Christian version of the National Enquirer. No, The Sun in the UK is a quote unquote respectable tabloid newspaper where you open the page and right there on page 3 there are some tits. that is the level of The Sun, and I vaguely recall my parents having been in the paper because our neighbours, who were Muslim by the way, complained that about the neighbours being naked.
Being naked, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must be quite a shock for Muslims to go outside next door. There's naked people standing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's about as high contrast as you can get.
Yeah, you've got someone in a burqa in one household and someone in
their
nothing.
birthday suit.
Yeah. It's and there were no other pagans in my community. There were no other pagans in my school when I was a kid growing up. And I have a very vivid memory. I remember this, in fact, for one assembly. In fact, no, it wasn't an assembly. The headmaster decided to pull all of the classes out of school to do this kind of census. And he said, okay, if you are a Christian, raise your hand. And then a bunch of Christians raised their hand. Okay, so they moved to the back of the class. Okay, if you are a Muslim, put your hand up. Okay, and then basically he would go through and then he'd separate all the groups based on their religion. So there's me and my sister. My sister's a year and a half younger than I am. She was what you'd call 2 grades lower than me. And we're sitting there in the middle of the assembly hall on our own, and then one of the teachers comes up to us and says, "You should just walk over to the Christian side because otherwise it's just going to look weird. You're going to get picked on. Your parents are outside naked, and it's really about the other students."
Yeah, they pick you up naked from school.
Carpooling on a broomstick. It's splinters. I just, I think of all the things that I remember about paganism, and I think that's a weird religion. And then I think Christianity. The thing I know, my dad. Whenever we drive somewhere as a kid, my dad would he'd make fun of Christians. It would just come up, and he'd make fun of Christianity. And, oh, Christians are so crazy.
They're so weird. Not like
Says
us.
the man who was standing in his garden naked not a week ago. It just. There's a hypocrisy in one, and this is the thing I was saying. It's a, when you have a multicultural. City or town or country of all these different faiths, they're all silently laughing at each other because they think I've got it right, and all these people here are being silly.
Yeah,
and I've picked the one true faith. I've picked the right horse. And it just seems like it's bullshit. It's at the end of the day. It's fucked up. It's mental, and I cannot understand why. I can understand why people latch on to faith because I said earlier, it's a psychological safety net, but. Just the idea of tolerance and multicultural society, and I think that's going to tear itself apart eventually, because eventually you are going to have someone say, well, actually these people have got it wrong, but we've got it right. It's happening in America. You've got people in power, people like Michelle Bachmann and Sarah Palin, talking about God and Christianity and a Christian God, and this is not a Christian country, but a lot of people in this country assume that it is, and that's really scary. There's already a dividing line in this country between people who are Christian and people who are not Christian. You know, people who are Jewish or Scientologists or Muslims or Hindus or pagan or atheists. You know, it's a huge problem in this country, and it's only going to get worse, unless it's not.
Let's hope not.
Fingers crossed.
All right, I think it's about time to commune with the spirits.
What's that bottle I was working on before? This thing's kicking my ass.
You're drinking this stuff?
Yeah.
A little water to it.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
What's the name of that one over
Well,
there?
that's what I'm drinking. What I'm drinking right now is the
God.
Glen Farkless 10. That's what the Archangel's currently choking on. And it's
I can't die. I'm an archangel.
it's like drinking a Thanksgiving dinner. There's so many flavors in here, and it's just a smack in the face.
They turn into a big blue bulbous child.
I was about to
Yeah,
say, you get to the blueberry pie and ice cream, that's when you have a problem.
So yeah, what I'm drinking right now is the Aberlour 10. I've been jumping around between a lot of stuff tonight, but 10 or 12? What is it? 12.
12, yeah.
12 year. Shortchanged it a couple years. If you like, if Abu Na is too in your face for it, this will mellow it out a little bit. It's pretty good.
That's what you were drinking too, Archangel. You were drinking the Aberlour. Yeah,
That
Aberlour.
shit was good. I really enjoyed it.
It is good. It's fantastic, and it's really cheap, which always helps.
Mm. And what are you communing with over there, Mahatma?
I am not, because I generally don't do booze, and if you had like Coke in the apartment, I would have had that, but you didn't offer me a drink when I got in. I've been sitting here getting
Because
warm
he's a totally
and dry.
host.
Yep.
That tongue. I've been
Dick,
talking.
dick.
You bastard!
I keep talking, and you've watched me talk. You can see my taste buds and my tongue drying out.
Constantly licking his lips.
So are you saying that you want a drink?
I wouldn't object.
Okay. I'll be back in a minute.
Do you have any non-alcoholic whiskey?
What? Is there such a thing as
It's
that?
all water.
Yeah.
That's the joke.
Yes.
One final question I had for you, Mr. Mahatma Ben, if that is your real name.
Joke never gets old, and it isn't.
Okay. Is if you personally experience any social fallout from not believing, like, or how long did it take for you to say, Dad, I'm really not buying this crap? Or did you sort of just keep it to yourself until you moved out of the house?
My dad knows that I'm an atheist. My mum knows I'm an atheist, and they all seem pretty cool with it. My mum says she's fine with anything as long as I'm not gay. I'm kidding. My mum is fine with that. I did come out as bisexual, and she said, no, you're not. Well, my mum has a very binary view of sexuality, so when I said I'm bisexual, she went, just pick a side.
She's like, that's not a thing.
Yeah. But yeah,
It's like saying you're agnostic. Either you're a believer or an atheist.
pick a side, we're at war. Yeah, I've not had any fallout from my family because of my lack of faith. I think my mum secretly hopes that I eventually, turn to paganism and
Come back to the fold, as it were.
I think she would like that, especially seeing as my sister is, practicing pagan. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think unless I suffer a serious head injury, such as falling off a horse or getting shot in the face by Dick Cheney, I don't think.
Or if it gets too hot in here, you have to take off all your clothes and stand in a circle.
We could do that. It's really warm in here. Where was I? Yeah, so I don't think I'm gonna. I haven't had any. I actually think my dad thinks I might be Christian.
Oh yeah.
Because
you don't talk about religion much, do you?
Well, no. We would talk about religion in the car on the way home occasionally, and I will occasionally mention something about Christianity or make a joke about Christianity, and sometimes I'll do it when we're not talking about religion, and I think he may suspect that I'm a Christian, but I'm not, and I'm more worried about him thinking I'm a Christian than him knowing I'm an atheist.
All right, now get ready to rage as we issue our fatwas of the week. I am declaring jihad on... What was it again? Oh, yeah. American reimaginings of UK shows. They're just never any fucking good. They're just never as good as the originals. It just doesn't translate. Top Gear, The Office... they're coupling. They either run for a long time and are horrible, or they show up and do 3 really good episodes and then disappear.
Well, The Office was
Sucks.
It was good for the first 3 seasons, then
No,
it just
it
dropped
wasn't.
off. No,
It was a pansy ass, candied up, fucking bullshit version of what the original was.
I think you have to remember about when it comes to American sitcoms, and The Office is a sitcom. American sitcoms all take place in this same sort of hyper reality where the colors are slightly too bright and the jokes are a little too, on the nose. The thing that makes the British version of The Office so great is how real it is. The American version tends to honk the nose. Yep. You know how when you see a clown. You see a clown, you can see the baggy pants, you can see the shoes, you can see the crazy hair and the face paint, but you still feel the need to honk the nose just to double check it's a clown. That's American remakes of British shows. That's the American version of The Office.
I will be declaring jihad on little cars that keep on parking in my parking spaces. There's a few things more irritating when you're going up a large parking structure going, fuck, no parking spots on this level, fuck, no parking spots on this level. Fuck, still no parking. Oh, got one. Oh, god damn it. There's a stupid little car in there. This little wiener go-kart thing. Makes me want to set fire to something. And sometimes you have like these little pansy motorcycles or Vespas taking up car-sized parking spaces. What the fuck?
Can I contribute to that?
Yes.
Because I'm contributing to all of your fatwas. Seeing as I am the guest of the show.
Yes.
Interesting side note, interesting fact, in fact, about England. Smart cars, the little tiny two-seaters, they're like half a car.
Little bitches.
Yeah, I love those cars. I want one. But
you ever have a G-Waves?
They in London, there's something called I don't care about your joke. I'm ignoring you. In England, in London specifically, there's something called a congestion charge. Now, I've never driven a car, particularly not in the UK, so it's not something I've ever had to deal with. Oh, we're fresh out of time because your phone is buzzing. There we are. Is it off? Are we paying attention? Okay then.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I give it back to you in June.
I'll give it back to you at the end of the semester. So smart motorbikes are exempt from the congestion charge.
So are hybrids, right?
So are hybrids, and so are smart cars. And you can park 2 smart cars in a car park space, and only one of you has to pay for the meter. Yeah, which is I think is really cool. But
when there's one of them, and I think I've got a parking spot, and I say fuck a lot, I don't like
I'll tell you
that.
what, if I get a smart car, I will stick the nose out as far as possible, just so you know.
Good.
I crash into my car, but at least you know you can't park there.
I would way rather have that than to be fooled.
Yeah, you'd rather have the expense of having to repair your bumper or my bumper than
It's your bumper. I don't know.
You still have to pay for it.
I'm gonna give you shit.
All right, I'm going to declare jihad on people that leave nails in the middle of the fucking parking lot. So I get a nail in my tire, and I got to buy new tires.
What the hell?
Fuck them.
Do you think they're doing this intentionally?
Doesn't matter.
No.
The result's the same.
But it still is really inconvenient, and I smell like ass right now because I didn't get a shower. Because after work, instead of getting home and showering and doing laundry before coming over, I was stuck in a fucking tire sales place with them telling me that, oh, because the nail is too close to the shoulder of the tire, we can't legally fix it, even though it would be totally safe to fix.
What does that even mean?
California's like, oh, it's too close to the edge of the tire. You can't do it. So you got to buy new tires.
You can't legally fix it.
It's not yet July, so you
legally
can't fix it. It's a fuck.
We'll give you a car back at the end of the semester. My fatwa is on fandom. Specifically, fandom of TV shows, comics, films, what have you, as they congregate on the internet, and you get people who are operating on maybe half a brain cell if they're lucky, and they become obsessed with these shows. Now, I don't have a problem with becoming obsessed with a TV show. I'm obsessed with Doctor Who. That's fair enough. But it's when they decide to start coming up with what they call headcanon or fanon or fanwank or any of that kind of bullshit, where they decide, oh, well, clearly this character is in love with that character, even though it's never been mentioned on the show, it's never been addressed. They clearly aren't in love if you look at their fucking body language, and they've tried to kill each other since 1963. That bugs me. The whole one true pairing thing. Oh, what's your one true pairing? Oh, it's Han and Leia. Really? The pairing from the fucking film? That one pairing that happened? That's your one true pairing? It's people like, headcanon. People are, headcanon. It's canon, but it's in my head. Canon being the established, continuity of the show. Something happens, it's part of the show's canon. And people have headcanon where they come up with things. Oh, well, clearly the Doctor and the Master are a couple and they're just in an on-again, off-again relationship. Are they? Fuck. They are rivals. That has been very firmly established. And just because Eric Roberts played the role gay for 90 minutes in 1996 does not mean they are a couple, you fucking douchebag. Do some research. Look on Wikipedia. Look on that one Doctor Who wiki on the show. Don't obsess over this bullshit. Don't make up your own canon because you deem the actual canon of the show to be unworthy of your time. And when characters die on television and you see people immediately rushing to message boards to say, well, it's not fair. Clearly the writers hate that character. Clearly they hate their fan base. What are they doing? This is our show. How dare they? Especially if it's a gay character. You can't kill off a gay character in a TV show. People lose their shit. Well, clearly the writer is a homophobe. I mean, he's out and he's been in a gay relationship since 1942, but he hates gays because he killed off the one gay character in my show. I am writing fan fiction where the character never died. I'm retconning the entire show and starting from the... You love this show and you're rewriting the thing from the beginning so that this one insignificant character cannot die. How fucking pathetic are you? Where that's the defining moment of your life is when a fictional homosexual man ceased breathing. Seriously, get some fucking perspective. Sorry. Had to get that off my chest.
Yay! So anyone who does that, diarrhea for a straight year. Non-stop, continuous diarrhea.
So I'm guessing you're a big fan of like all the fan art of like Harry and Ron making out.
Oh, fuck off! Fuck off! No, you see fan art like even worse is Harry and what's that one blonde dick? The
Draco Malfoy.
And you see them in it's a lover's embrace, or the fan fiction of them kissing and jerking each other off. Fuck off! They clearly hate each other. One of them is clearly an evil douche face. Fuck off with that shit. You want to see two guys having sex? Watch gay porn like everyone else. Don't imagine two fictional characters who do not exist, sucking each other's cocks.
You say what? Gay porn like everyone else?
Like, well, yeah, everyone, right?
You guys, the game.
Don't get him started again. He'll just keep going.
We'd like to thank you for joining us on the Church of Awesome. We have been awesome, and you have been awesome. We will leave you now with the gift of tongues.
Nebutu obit without enterprise. Udelai jasme Paris con un comprimento un precis mohon do kofnis divinci. Jejins invisi do narciho postero emanusir ustopit. Una visprat sili vet un maiden stupid. Uns vis linkam musi buit creslena tate. Tadeleco sadni dalsi. Achana dir buzi platitsato ko udelale.
If there's any place to rage, it's in this holy tabernacle of hate.
Yeah, it's a cold, it's not terminal.
Like, I'm divorcing you, your vagina's broken.
Fuck off with that shit. You want to see two guys having sex? Watch gay porn like everyone else. The comments made by the hosts and other participants are the opinions of the individuals and not those of any corporate entity. All data and information provided in this program is for informational purposes only. The Church of Awesome makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, currentness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and will not be liable for any errors, omissions, or delays in this information or any losses, injuries, or damages arising from its display or use. All information is provided on an as-is basis. If you like what you've heard in today's sermon, come visit us at churchofawesome.com or follow us on Twitter at COA Podcast. It's great, kid. Well, use it.